Why was that so? Because if you have a black woman and you want to uphold the slave system, then the black child, or I shouldn't say the black child, the child of a black woman, because all of them weren't black, because we know that Marsha had his way. So there were
Right.
mixed babies and everything, right? But the child of the black womb, put it that way, had to be the same thing as the mother. And that is how you perpetuate slavery. Because a black woman, every child that she has becomes a slave. And that is how you perpetuate slavery. If you think about it, it comes out of the womb of the black woman, right? So you have a massa who could rape the women on his plantation and end up for that rape being rewarded with more workforce. You really got to think about these things. You really, really, really got to think about these things. Because when I talk about the baggage that we are carrying in our psyche, that is what I'm talking about. Okay. The pattern changes after legal emancipation. So after legal emancipation, now the 1800s, this is where we get this whole Victorian notion of people must be married, and now the massa does not want to be responsible for the children of the black womb anymore, because they're not working on the plantation for him for free. There's no reason now for him to want to carry that burden to feed those children. So all of a sudden now Massa believes in marriage, right? And the children now become the responsibility of the black man, who is not prepared to be responsible for a family. He has no job, he has no land, he has no means. So how is he going to? So really what the white man gave the black man at emancipation was a poison cup, because you get responsibilities that you are not prepared for. Okay, that causes further friction between the men and the women, because the expectations of the women and the expectations of the men don't line up. That is not something that happened last year in Barbados or in the 1960s. That is something that we have always had. The expectations do not line up. The men can't provide, the women still have to provide. The men don't like that the women still providing, they're working outside the home, all kinds of gender friction. Okay. After emancipation, children, then the lineage becomes a patrilineal system. So you become what your father is as long as your mother and your father are married. And if your mother and your father were not married, you are not recognized. You are still seen as what they call a bastard, right? But then after the 1970s, they removed that set of bastardry laws. And what you have now is joint custody of children. But the children become the thing in the middle between the black woman, who still feels like she should be able to control her children in the same way that she controlled them under the slave system, under the matrilineal system. And you have the black man who, although it is a poison cup that he was given by the white man, wants that power of being the head of the household, although he doesn't have anything else outside of the title of head to really be able to provide for the women and the children. So when you talk about domestic violence in Barbados, when you talk about family instability, when you talk about intimate partner violence, this is what it is set down on in the Caribbean. It is a colonial relic. Okay, so we have to start to unpack it. We have to start to talk about it, think about it, and unpack it. Okay, so when we talk about the contemporary moment now and the court system in Barbados, right? Errol Barra, not me. Errol Barra is who tell Bajans if they want justice, stay out of the law court. Did he not say that? He said that, right? And the reason for that is because the court is a colonial mechanism. We just said, if you are white and you go to court, your outcomes, your possibilities, the things that can happen in the court are completely different than if you are a black person. Still to today, still now, that is, again, we're not talking about any one officer of the court or anything. We're talking about the court as a system. It is a colonial system. We have not changed it. Okay. Our government promised us we were going to get a family court. We were going to get all of these things that were supposed to make the space a space where we could support families that were having all of these conflicts and crises and whatever. But the truth is, the court itself has not resolved some of the things that the colonial relics have given to us, right? So we have to have an honest and frank discussion about gender in Barbados. What do we want gender relations to be? Because I just gave you a little bit of the history and we realize now it's complicated. So we have to ask ourselves in 2025 Barbados, if we want more women to feel comfortable to have children, what do our gender relations have to look like, right? If we want to create a space for Caribbean men in the family, what does that have to look like? They can't only be head in name alone. They need jobs. They need land. They need the things that a man needs to be able to protect his children, right? So how do we create that safe space for each of us, men and women in Barbados, to come together? How do we start to heal our relationships? How do we understand that both of us, the men and the women, are bringing trauma, real generational complex trauma to our relationships? And then this person is using the language. How do we unlearn and relearn? Absolutely. And somebody asked before, is this why women left men's names off of birth certificates? Yes. We can talk about all of that, all of the questions. I'm going to answer as many as I can. So family matters are complex and complicated in Barbados. And we do not have a court system that is able to manage that or to deal with that. I don't think that the historical analysis that we went through just now, many of the people in the courts are going through that. They don't understand it. So they use this colonial mechanism to be able to step into these family matters, and they're making things worse. They're making things worse. To resolve family matters in the context of Barbados, we need counseling and support, right? We need to stop further occurrences of violence. We need to call it what it is, and we need to be prepared to stop it. And we need to make sure that we protect children and the elderly in the home, vulnerable people, okay? Because the reality is that the mothers in Barbadian society, in many societies, are the carers. So if a woman is facing violence herself, it is not just that woman that is destabilized, it is the entire family, okay? So that is kind of where I will stop, and we can bridge out and kind of, you know, talk about the rest as we go through the program. The only thing that I would say quickly before I stop is that the government has promised us a family court in Barbados for so long that I would actually know. I stopped asking about the family court because the best practice now is alternative resolution to family matters that don't go through the court at all. So we recognize the harms and the unsafeties of the colonial court, and we're actually setting up now community mechanisms to be able to help deal with and manage family conflict. And we can talk about that, like I said, as we continue through the show. I know it was a little long, but Marcia, we need to unpack the history. There's so much in the history. And if we understand what is in the history, we can now understand how to build a different society. You're muted, Marcia.
This has been very insightful. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts, but I'm deliberately going to give way to Mr. Bob. He's a male here. And I'm looking in the comment section. I'm not seeing, I'm not seeing too many men saying anything. And I'm very curious about that. I would love to hear their thoughts about this. But over to you, Mr. Bob, before we move on to healthcare.
Okay. Quickly, Marsha. If a family court is not yet operational, what interim measures could be put in place to fast track protection orders and child protection cases?
Yeah. So I think, and there was a comment in the in the comments just now that our courts are doing harm because the people within the courts themselves are broken. I feel as though we have to really stop this ball hitting thing, women too, men too, women too, men too, and realize that the level of family instability in our families in Barbados is at a crisis proportion. And a lot of women in Barbados are not minded to have children right now because of, you're talking about protection orders. But even before we get to the protection orders, let's talk about what Barbadian women have to go through to get maintenance for their children. And that is a perennial problem, right? And I'm not talking now, that is not man bashing. The only bashing that I'm doing here is system bashing, right? Because we have not been able to set up a mechanism in the court yet that works effectively so that children can exercise their right to maintenance. It is not, access and maintenance are not rights of mothers and fathers, they're rights of children, right? So that's why women don't have children in Barbados. It's too much stress, to be honest, right? But in terms of the protection orders and the child cases, there are children in Barbados who are being ruined. And I use that word unapologetically. They're being ruined as they wait for cases to move through the court, right? So I spoke, and I will continue to speak, a couple of weeks ago about a child whose mother ran from violence at 2. And that child was left with the perpetrator of the violence. The child is now 7. That child is still waiting for a ruling from the court, for the court to figure out that she should have never been left with the perpetrator at all. And by the time we get back into that situation, and we give that child back to its mother, you know what's going to happen? That child is already going to be exhibiting all the signs of dysfunctional behavior. She's already going to be one of those children who has, all the things that the psychologists will call the names of, the oppositional personality disorders and all of this. So she is a child that we have created because of our inaction in court, our inability to protect our children. I heard Kurt Humphrey talking about it on the news the other day. They want to fast track child cases through the court. They can't. Not with the mechanism that we have now. It is hot here. So the short answer to your question is we are not handling protection orders and child's related matters through the court effectively. You have little girls who are being raped at 6 and 7. And by the time their cases come up, they're 23 and 24. Those things happen in Barbados on a daily basis. And when you talk about people's inability then to feel like they can cope with their lives, if you were raped at 6 or 7 years old and you're still waiting at 24 or 25 for your case to be heard, do you think that you're going to be okay? That's why when I talk about this is a crisis of productivity, do you think that person is going to be nice at their job? They're going to be, hi, good morning. How are you? How can I help? Those two things don't go together like that. So we have a whole crisis on our hands. And this is the real crisis that is driving the crime and the dysfunction in Barbados and people falling off the society and the suicides and it all starts here.
Yeah. Someone is asking where we can, any references that you can probably put, if you put it in our private chat, Marsha, where people can read more and research more about these historical facts.
Yeah.
I think that this, for me, I tell you, it's answering a lot of questions. Remember, I have 3 sons. And so it's answering a lot of questions and filling in a lot of gaps. I am not Barbadian, and I'm in and it's I'm learning. Honestly, I did learn a lot. I have to say that as a female, I learned a lot, and it's I'm hoping that other women who are listening will cause us to understand our men a bit better. I'm hoping so. Mr. Bob. that we would,
Yes, yes.
yes, and not see ourselves moving so fast ahead, and the men won't come, and the men, but it's to
The boys
understand.
are doing well in school, and the girls moving ahead, and they ain't got no male figures in school. There are too many there are too many female principals in Barbados, and they're forgetting the men. I don't understand.
Right. But no, no, this historic, no, I'm serious. I'm not, I'm sure there are various theories out there, but what Marsha presented tonight for me as a female, is answering a lot of questions. I'm being honest, and I don't know if other people, and I think that's why the question is there about wanting to research some more on it,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I think that I want to be able to share this with my sons.
Yes.
It's this
Very
serious.
important.
It's this serious, all I could tell my boys, is that when they were in school, I tell them, listen, do not let them girls beat you in math and English, because that's what I'm being honest. That's what I told them. I said, you coming first in the class, right? So
Raising a healthy boy
easy.
child in Barbados is a tall order. That is not like that is something that I can admit. If I call to talk about a crisis that a woman is having, and you ask me that question as the corollary to what I'm talking about, I won't talk about it in that context,
Mhm.
because that is not what I call to talk about. But raising a boy child in Barbados is a healthy, well-adjusted, happy boy child is a tall order. And
I
what it takes for us as those strong black mothers who are raising those boy children is to take special care with them,
Yeah.
right? Because I talked about Bajan men and how they're not fighters and that kind of thing. But let me tell you, the Bajan women learned very early on. And I think there's a certain element of this that is a Caribbean characteristic, but there's an edge that Barbadian women have. You see, a Bajan woman tongue, a Bajan woman would take you apart with her tongue. She don't touch you. She don't fight way out. Watch Mr. Bob. Look, Mr. Bob know what he talking about. Cause I know that
I
Mr.
tell
Bob
you,
see.
I
Like
tell you,
me,
boy, and
right?
they lay a finger on you.
All women step outside the house, petticoat above the breast and the star. Who in the path lick up? Like it ain't a fighting, it ain't a nothing. I know my grandmother would be in she house and she humming, and she had this song that she used to sing. It
They
ain't
just
me,
start to sing
it's
beware.
you, you confused. These are things that we grew up with.
What's the name of the song she was singing?
I don't know the name, but it was like this little song that she made up. It ain't me, it is
It is
you, you're
you, you're
confused. So
confused.
if my grandfather came
Yes.
home and he started to talk about anything or whatever, my grandmother would just start to sing. She ain't saying a word. And she can sing this song for a good 2 hours. And she used to say, and I wake up this morning and I say my Lord's Prayer.
Baby,
It ain't me, it is
it is
you,
you,
you're
you're confused.
confused. But when we think about it now, that is emotional warfare. That is
Yes,
emotional
yes.
warfare. So to raise a healthy, well-adjusted Barbadian man, given our historical context and understanding ourselves as women, you have to do a little bit to protect them. You have to do a little bit to bring out that softer side. And all of these are conversations that we should be having. But don't ask me that if I call to talk about a woman that get beat in the road yesterday, because that's not what I'm talking about. But this is what our Bureau of Gender Affairs should be doing and needs to be doing.
Wow, this is very, very deep, and we have to move on. We didn't do this for the whole night, but I would I don't know. I mean, Mr. Bob, it feels like this is something that it would be good to have this with some men on and some young women
Yes,
on,
yes, and young men
and
as well.
you
Yes,
know what I mean? I
have
think
the
I
have the
think it would
conversation.
be good to like break this down, but I don't know. I'm just thinking that it shouldn't just go like this. We have to go to another topic. But Marcia, this is very, very, very good.
Insightful.
Mhm.
Yes. Very
Mhm.
insightful and thought-provoking.
Thought provoking and make me want to go and research. And I know Dave and I gonna have some conversations with him, because we would like to read more about it. We have three boy children, and I think it would be good. And I'm gonna talk with my youngest one who is at home, about some of this and hear his thoughts about it. But
I see some, Marcia, see you have some questions for the minister at this point in
yes.
time. Don't leave it skip those. They need to know what we're thinking and
Yes,
what we
they
need to
need to
know.
know. Yes, thank you for
Mhm.
reminding me, Mr. Bob. And I'm going to ask you to read them. And the reason we're doing this, guys, is we are talking tonight about promises. Okay. Can this government be trusted? One of the things that they promised us, and Marsha, mentioned it tonight. It's a family court, and it's not that it's going to solve everything, but it's a step in the right direction. That we can help to remedy some of the issues within the family. So, Mr. Bob, can you go ahead and ask some of these questions because they watch the show. So go ahead,
Yes,
Mr.
yes,
Bob.
they do. So the first bullet point, please provide the current status of the family court initiative. And in brackets, we have consultant reports, feasibility studies, project plan. Bullet point, bullet point number 2, is there a published timeline and budget for establishing an operational family court? If yes, provide dates and line item amounts.
No, I see Marsha's laughing, but hold a minute. This is the reason I came up with these questions today because I sat down for hours going through the BLP manifesto, and this was in the
A
manifesto.
big deal. A big deal. And I am laughing because I have a stack of those consultant reports, feasibility studies, project plans. We have spent a pretty penny on establishing a family court in Barbados. This is something that we've been trying to do since 1998. So that will tell you. And every time a new government comes in, we scrap all the plans from the government before, and we start from scratch as if the idea is this government's idea,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I have been to all kinds of sessions at UN House, at Savannah Hotel. There was a new hotel there in Britainsill. You go up from the police station, and then there was somebody bought that property and made it into a hotel. There was a big splash. That was the last one that I went to there, under Marston Gibson's as Chief Justice. And we brought a consultant, the master of the family court in Trinidad. And we had a whole session about the family court and how they collect maintenance and how they've streamlined the system in Trinidad. Nothing. I think the problem with the family court in Barbados is the colonial relics. They don't understand why it isn't working because they don't understand themselves how colonial the court is and all that I just went through. The punishment for women in Barbados, you go before the court and they want to take away your child. Take away your child. That is a colonial relic. That was one of the ultimate ways to punish a black woman on the plantation. You took her child and you sold it. And we have court mechanisms in Barbados to today that the first thing that they want to do is threaten a mother with removal of the child. So we are doing things, straight from the slavery playbook, and then we wonder why we have so many people in Barbados that are broken. They grow up in brokenness and they become broken.
Yeah. Continue. Thank you, Marsha. Continue, Mr. Bob.
I asked bullet point number 3.
Hmm.
So we go to bullet point number 4. What
Yeah.
interagency resourcing, police family conflict unit, social services, judiciary staffing has been allocated for family matters in 2024-2025?
Read that again, Mr. Bob. In case the officials, because they listen to the show. I heard
What
that they listen to the show. So
what
ask them the question.
interagency resourcing, we have in brackets, police family conflict unit, social services, judiciary staffing has been allocated for family matters in 2024-2025?
So the family conflict unit was started in the early 2000s. There was a spate of women murders, femicides, and that was started to as the response. It started with 3 police officers, and I am telling you that in 2025 it still has the same 3. The family conflict unit works 8:30 to 4 o'clock, as if family violence is this tidy thing that only happens 8:30 to 4 o'clock. Marcia, where are most people in Barbados between 8:30 to 4 o'clock?
They're at work.
They're at work. When do they come home?
After that,
So
5:30.
wouldn't it be obvious to us that most of the cases of conflict that arise would not be between 8 and 4 o'clock when people are at work and at school, but actually between 4:30 and 6:30 the next morning when people leave home to go to work? So you the mechanism is not even set up properly. They don't work on the weekends. Anytime you need to do an extraction with a woman and children from a house or whatever, you still have to go and deal with the normal police station with nobody don't know what to do and nobody don't know how to contact this one and contact that one. I could talk because I am as versed in the books as I am in the street. So I know it all the way around. So nobody can tell me what I know because I am still via my little trusty phone and WhatsApp going to the police station in the pockets of many of those women. So I hear when the police say, oh, we don't know what to do with this here now. You could come back Monday when the family conflict unit open. I'm hearing those things live and direct in 2025. When you talk about the social services, Barbados love to sign a treaty. We have a you-know-who that flying all around the world, making the world feel that they are the best prime minister, the most progressive prime minister, a you-know-who. I'm not calling any names because Marcia doesn't like when I call names.
No, but we know who. We know it's the PM.
And we signed this treaty and we signed that treaty and we signed on to CEDAW, we signed on to human rights, we signed on to everything. We are supposed to provide every victim of domestic violence, intimate partner violence in Barbados with housing and food support. We made that commitment as Barbados, not Marsha. We, as the people of Barbados, that is one of our commitments to ensure through the welfare department that women and children affected by family instability can get food. I had a client who said to me earlier this week, I am not going to the welfare. I will starve first because of the way that they treat us when we go there. And I think that many of us know that she's not exaggerating and she's not lying. Right? So then you have that mother who is unable to support her children. And then we have these cycles that keep going. Children can't perform well in school, come out of school, they can't read and write. The problems that we have with reading and writing in Barbados, Marcia, are not only problems of letters and phonics. By the time you grow up in a household with so much confusion and instability around you, it affects your concentration. It rewires your brain. If you look at the research that is coming out now on the impact of family instability on children, that is not even sex. We haven't even gotten to the sexual abuse, which is a whole nother next thing altogether. Lack of concentration, lack of memory. What we are seeing in our schools in Barbados, we're going to talk about schools next. What we are seeing in our schools is inextricably tied to what we are seeing in our households.
Yeah, correct.
The judicial staffing, I am, everybody knows, an advocate. They don't even want to work with me in the court. They don't even want to allow me into the court because they know, I know the law tall. I call Cap 130A my Bible. So when I am supporting a client, my client knows how to talk back to the court. My client knows what to ask for. My client knows, when things are going right versus when they're not going right. They know the language and that kind of thing. So they don't want to let me in the court because the court is still a colonial mechanism. They're supposed to be able to unfair Black people in day. So when you talk about the judicial staffing, we still see staff in the judiciary in Barbados as the magistrate and the body that does take the notes and the police that does bring in the accusations against the person. We have not moved to judicial staffing beyond that can really support the family social workers and advocates and a whole slew of other people who don't only deal with the court the particular day of the incident, but helps that family to be able to regulate over time. Because somebody doesn't go from abusive tonight to all good because they went court tomorrow. Come on, Marcia, right?